Welcome back to Chit Chatting with Jocelyn. We are going into Medicare Part 2 with Dan, my guest from Jester Technology. Welcome back.
Thank you very much.
It's only been a couple minutes, but
yes.
Thank you very much. So we're going to go right into a PowerPoint presentation that I assume you use whenever you visit all your different businesses?
Yes, when not only businesses, but we're informing the general public of retirement. We go over this is a more condensed, quicker version because of time.
Time restraints, yeah.
Yes. So we go over a little bit quicker, but yes, it's a condensed version.
All right. So we're going to go over the 4 rules of retirement, what everybody should know.
Yes.
So take it away.
Very simple. When we start talking about retirement, the simple 4 rules are right here. Believe it or not, you have a mandatory expense in retirement. Mandatory expense when you retire happens to be Medicare. You have to enroll into it when eligible. So when you're 65 and older and you're no longer covered by credible health insurance through an employer or spousal employer, you don't have a choice. The federal government dictates that you have to have health insurance.
Okay.
Now, if you do not enroll in a Medicare and you do not have credible health insurance elsewhere, you forfeit all current, future, and past Social Security benefits. So you give up 100% of your Social Security benefits.
Wow.
It gets worse. So let's say you're 62 years old or 63 years old collecting Social Security. You do not enroll into Medicare when eligible and you don't have credible health insurance. You have to pay back every single nickel of Social Security benefit that you've received prior to being Medicare eligible. Wow. It gets better. If you don't pay it back,
they put you in jail.
It gets better than jail. What they do is they open up an account and they put your name on it and they let the penalty grow. And then when your children have a tax refund or your children collect Social Security,
they take that.
Isn't it great?
The things that people don't know of what they've been voting for, thinking that it's all great.
The current administration has actually ceased that policy for the current administration. Prior to that, the example that we like to give is Mary Grice from Baltimore, Maryland. She had lost her Social Security check because her father racked up a debt in 1960 to the U.S. Treasury. So by the time she became 66, I believe she started collecting her Social Security check, she lost 100% of it.
So she was left with nothing.
For the year.
Wow.
Yeah, they took it because you have to pay. So you have a mandatory cost in retirement. You have no choice. You have to enroll in a Medicare. On top of that, you have this thing called the Affordable Care Act. I'm not sure if you ever heard of it.
Yeah, that disgusting...
Well...
I'm sorry, that disgusting legislation passed at midnight with no Republicans on board by 44.
However we want to look at it.
That's how I look at it.
I understand. So however you look at it, the Affordable Care Act states that you have to have credible health insurance. Currently, there is no individual mandate.
Correct, they got rid of it.
So you're not penalized for not having health insurance. But the law still exists. So the next administration, all they have to do is apply the penalty or a higher penalty, and it's still there. The law still dictates you have to have credible health insurance.
Right.
So you have to have Medicare, correct?
Correct.
So the second rule, on top of you have a mandatory expense in retirement, this mandatory expense happens to be based on the amount of income you generate. So the more income you generate, the higher this mandatory cost. Meaning
Medicare.
Yes. Now, the income that they look at is defined solely as everything on lines 2A and 8B of the IRS Form 1040, or, as you can see from the slide, traditional 401k assets, wages, Social Security, capital gains, dividends.
So they count your Social Security that they took for all those years.
Yes.
They now count that as income.
Yes, they get to tax twice on it. Isn't it great? And then on the fourth rule,
you know, to be honest, I'm laughing and feeling a little happy about what you're saying, only because I wasn't crazy all these years, because I kept saying they're going to tax you twice, maybe 3 times, and you're now validating that. So.
Oh, they're taxing you, as we discussed in the earlier
4
show.
times. Yeah.
They're actually taxing you 4 times because ultimately, the fourth rule that no one will ever tell you is that your Medicare is coming out of your Social Security benefit.
Correct.
So when you start talking about those two and combine, what you're going to notice is the projected rates of Medicare versus Social Security. So each year your Social Security check increases a little bit by what is known as the cost of living adjustment, or COLA.
COLA.
It's going up by a maximum of 2.4%. In 2021, it's going to be 1.3. Your Medicare premiums are projected to inflate at 5.86%. So what happens to everyone's Social Security check over time?
It's going to get less and less and less.
Because your Medicare premiums...
Because your Medicare premiums are going up, your Social Security monthly is going to go down.
Yes. So now the beauty is it can't actually go down. So the federal government...
They just take more.
Well, the federal government has mandated what is known as the Hold Harmless Act. That was created in 1984. And the Hold Harmless Act states that no one's Social Security benefit can ever go down from the previous year. So you can never see a negative amount. You'll always get the same amount that you got to.
Right. But if you're taking more Medicare, you're getting less. You're not. It's not actually going down.
Well, you owe. So what will happen is, let's say you're making $1,000 a month in, say, 2020. Your Medicare premiums eat up your cost of living adjustment, and your Medicare check is really only supposed to be, let's say, $900. You can't go to $900, you stay at $1,000. Now, you still owe the difference. So now, let's say 2 years from that point, Medicare goes up, Social Security goes up extremely high. Well, you're not collecting that Social Security because you still owe in the rears.
So they'll take that.
You got to pay it back. Check can never really go up.
So it's likened to, you get a bonus.
Sort of.
And they would take that
to
pay for those differences during that time.
Yep. And then we start taking a look at, when we talk about healthcare, we start talking about what the actual expenses are. This is for somebody in New Hampshire. So if you take a look at original Medicare, as we were talking about earlier, you have a choice between what is known as original Medicare or Medicare Advantage plan. The reason why we use original Medicare is very simple. If you're covered by all of this, Part A, Part B, prescription drug plan, if you get admitted into a hospital for a medically necessary need, you pay nothing.
Right.
There's zero cost. Wow. There's no copay. There's no out-of-pocket. You can go see any physician in the country. They'll accept Medicare, and you can cross state lines. So with the Medicare Advantage plan,
you have to stay within.
You have to stay inside that network. So unfortunately, what happens is if you happen to have a home in Florida and a home in New Hampshire, it's not covered in one of the states. And you can't own both plans. So you can't own a supplemental plan as well as a Medicare Advantage plan. It's illegal.
Wow.
So we use the most robust.
Correct.
So for the state of New Hampshire, you're looking at about $10,000. Now, again, we've told you what the premium, what Medicare is inflating at, 5.86. So we know that somebody in New Hampshire, 60-year-old healthy couple, wants to retire at 67 and live to the age of 85. Just math. They're going to pay $475,000 for the Medicare premium.
$475 rounded up, $1,000 between
67 and 85.
67 and 85?
Yes.
At $10,000 a year times two people, so that's $20,000.
Oh, it's more because it's $10,000 compounding at 5.86, so it's growing at 5.86% each year.
Go back to the. So I get that.
This slide?
Yeah. So Part A, that comes out.
You pay for it out of your taxes.
You pay that out of your taxes. Part B comes out of your Social Security check.
Yes. You pay for Part D and you pay for the supplemental plan.
Correct.
So that $274, you're going to pay, well, you could pay prescription drug coverage, Part D, out of your Social Security check, and then you're going to write a check for your supplemental plan.
Correct. Yep. So when you add that up, so that's $600-700 a month.
Yes.
Times two people is $1,400, and then growing times that 5.86.
You get $475.
Wow, that's not cheap.
No. Oh, it's going to get better too.
We're going to get more coverage.
Yeah, no.
No.
You get to pay more for the exact same coverage.
Because you were a good doobie and you have...
So we start talking about, this is where what the financial industry unfortunately is not addressing. Again, federal law. You have a mandatory expense. You can't get away from this. Now, you could say, I'm not going to pay for a Medigap supplemental plan.
Supplemental, right.
That means you pay the copays, deductibles, and excess charges out of Medicare. And how Medicare works is, let's say you go into the hospital and you're going into, let's say, gallbladder removed. You're going to pay $1,400, a little bit more for your deductible for Part A.
Yeah.
You're going to have a copay for Part B. It's going to be about 20%. And then you're going to get hit with an excess charge for the doctors. Are going to charge you an extra 15% that's going to come out of
For
your
every
pocket.
doctor that sees you.
For every doctor that sees you. So without a supplemental plan, you're paying all of that out of pocket. Now, here's how Medicare works. Let's say you're in the hospital for the gallbladder removal and you get diagnosed with COVID. Now, COVID, thankfully, there is the CARES Act, so I'm being a little extreme. The CARES Act is actually going to cover you, but let's say it's not there and you're not covered. So let's say you just got an infection. That's a new medical code. So that's a new onboarding or a new inpatient. That's another $1,400, another 20%, another excess charge.
Wow.
Now, let's say you're in the hospital.
And you get MRSA.
And you fall down and
fall down.
break a hip. That's a new incident, and you get hit with all those costs again. You have an unlimited liability where it all goes away if you just have a supplemental plan. You could literally have a procedure done, a different procedure done every single day in that.
And if you have your supplemental with your regular Medicare, it's all totally covered.
All totally covered. And you can go anywhere in the country.
Which makes sense, but yikes, $475,000, and that's premiums and...
That's just premiums. So they haven't taken a pill, they haven't seen a doctor.
Correct.
They haven't had their eyes checked. So for those that may want to have, say, prescription eyeglasses, unfortunately, Medicare doesn't cover that.
Correct.
So you have to go get your own prescription drug cover.
Right.
Your own prescription glasses. That's why when you go to like the dollar store or Walmart or Home Depot, you'll see what they call readers for $1.
Yep.
It's because people on Medicare can't actually afford.
Well, I'm thinking about my mom and her glasses, even buying the most basic when she goes to the eye doctor, is between $250 and $350 for a set of glasses.
Set of glasses.
That can change from year to year as your eyesight can change.
Yeah.
So you can be spending that kind of money if you do contacts. So I do contacts, and I know that's about $500, $600 a year. And the thing is, you have to go, if you want a new prescription or you need to change your prescription, you have to go for another eye exam in order to get...
Which isn't covered by Medicare.
Which is not covered, right. So you just keep adding and adding and adding.
Yes, isn't it great?
So why don't they just wipe it all out and let people buy their own medical insurance, period?
So the reason why the federal government doesn't do that, so in 1965 we had what is basically known as the Social Security Medicare Act, and they brought in Medicare. The reason for that to this day still is a little mind-boggling, because at the time 95% of the U.S. population was covered either by, well, not just employers. They were covered by the employers or by the military because of World War I to the Korea.
Where we had a huge amount of people.
So it was ultimately
in the
used also as a recruitment tool for the military. Come in, do your 4 years with inside the military, you're going to get free health benefits. So what did the federal government decide to do?
Do the same thing with Medicare.
Well, they wanted to take the onus off the military of providing health care, and they moved it over to Medicare. So now people don't have to go into the military, and they don't have to pay for their health coverage. And we voted for it numerous times.
I didn't vote for them to take, on the record. In full disclosure and transparency, which are those words they toss around, I did not vote.
You were not alive in 65 to vote. How's that? You weren't even around in 65.
I might have been a sparkle, but in my dad's eye. But you know, it's really mind-blowing. How did they get this past people? It just sounds good, so let's do it. We're going to take care of you when you're old, and now we're looking at $475,000 if you're healthy.
Yes. Oh, we're not even talking, the issue that we even have with our software is we're not actually projecting what your healthcare costs are. We actually can truly project what the out-of-pocket healthcare costs are. We just need to know when you're going to get cancer and how much you're going to weigh. So the reason being is once we know what your health conditions are, we know what the medications that you're going to need are. And we know through your weight what your dosage is going to be, and we even know what the inflation rate of most prescription drugs are.
So what's the discount for healthy people that don't get heavy and don't have diseases?
They're going to pay, they're lucky enough to be paying $475.
And not have to pay more.
Because again, we're going to talk about Medicare's IRMA, which is Medicare's means tested.
Okay.
So when you take a look at the slide here, these are the current IRMA brackets today. So for couples that are, an individual on the left-hand side earning under $87,000 or a couple earning under $174,000, they're not going to pay anything extra for their Medicare premiums. They're only going to pay $475 in the state of New Hampshire. If they happen to earn $1 too much, they're going to pay 40% more.
Almost.
The maximum is they're going to pay 240% more. And again, they define income as your Social Security check, capital gains, dividends, any wages, and any distribution from that traditional 401k.
Which you're forced to take.
At the age of 72. So now you take money out of the traditional 401k, they match it up with your Social Security check, and what happens to your Medicare premiums? To give you an idea of who's going to be impacted by this, if we take a 55-year-old New Hampshire resident that wants to retire at the age of 70. They're putting in $8,000 away into their traditional 401k because their financial advisor told them to. They earn $60,000 in wages, and they already saved 60 grand. They enter the IRMA bracket at the age of 78. Because we know what the $60,000 that they've already saved will grow at investing $8,000. Let's say they get a 5% rate of return. We know what their Social Security check will be if they earn $60,000. They maximize it's the age of 70. So we also tell people the third worst possible thing you can do in retirement is maximize your Social Security check before speaking to a financial advisor who understands federal law.
Okay, you lost me on that one.
So the third,
what do you mean maximize?
So people, you can take Social Security starting at 62. Each year that you delay or each year you go longer, it gets higher. Your maximum Social Security age, believe it or not, is 67. Now, if you get bonus or an 8% pay increase, if you let the government play with your money longer, then you take it at the age of 70. Once you take that income at the age of 70, you can never turn it off. So you've maximized the most amount of Social Security benefits that you can receive from the federal government. You can never turn it off. It counts towards IRMA. What's going to happen to your Medicare premiums?
They're going to go up.
Isn't it great? So what happens to your Social Security check?
It's going to go, they're going to take more out of it.
And here's the great part about IRMA. The federal government went ahead and changed the Hold Harmless Act in 2009 under the Medicare Fairness Act. Again, we voted for this. And stated that anyone that enters Medicare's IRMA bracket is no longer afforded the protection of the Hold Harmless Act. Thus, their Social Security check can and will go negative. Meaning, you will generate so much income that your Medicare premiums are so high that your Social Security check will not cover your Medicare premiums, and you have to write a check to the federal government
for your Medicare premiums
on a quarterly basis.
Wow.
And then, here's the beauty. You're then taxed on the very same Social Security income you've never received.
That's just wrong.
No, it's not.
That's just wrong.
This is what your financial advisor is telling you to do.
That may be it. It's wrong. So what really cooks my goose, it makes me think, so while our taxes are paying the salaries of the politicians, they're not paying into Medicare. They have their own.
They have their own health insurance.
They have their own health insurance, so they're not getting killed and taxed 4 times over like we are. And on top of that, we're paying for their Cadillac insurance.
But what gets even better is your public employees.
Am I gonna Publisher Clearinghouse gonna come and I'm gonna
you're gonna win. Here's another thing you win. Your public employees, like your teachers, firefighters, police officers, through the years they've generated contracts through their unions. Who pays for their Medicare premiums?
We do.
Yes. So pension income also counts towards Medicare's IRMA. So as they maximize their pension, They're not paying for healthcare costs
We
as
are.
we are. So what happens to
So
them?
as ours goes up,
Yeah, so they're theirs.
so
but they
our
don't pay for-
taxes, what we have to, so not only do we get quadruple dipped, not only does our Medicare go up and we have IRMA, that we also are paying property taxes, and mostly for teachers, goes through the roof.
And here's what counts as income. As you're going to notice, is pension and rental income. All capital gains, dividends, and again, any distribution from any tax-deferred, qualified, traditional 401k, 403b, SEP, IRA. So everything that you have that you've been told to save as a dubious investor through your financial advisor, and even your employer should be on the hook for this. And that
Right,
was what,
because they're the ones that push 401ks.
so no, they didn't push, but they have figured out that the company match, they receive a benefit for giving you the company match.
Oh, okay.
So they're receiving a tax break by giving you money, and then what are you actually really getting?
Higher tax
Higher Medicare premiums, lower Social Security benefits, higher taxes. But your employer got the benefit of getting a tax break. This is where a few years ago, the former administration passed what is known as the Fiduciary Rule. And this was a way for them to go after all the employers that offer 401k plans that don't educate their employees on this, because this is all federal law. It's all federal law. This comes directly from the socialsecurity.gov. Now, it comes directly from us as the other, this is who's actually going to reach Medicare's IRMA, as we were saying, a 55-year-old person. But we were talking about, I actually don't have it, and I apologize. Oh, there it is. We start talking about what we're really looking at cost. So if we look at state of New Hampshire, 55-year-old, and that's supposed to be couple, I apologize.
Okay.
55-year-old couple retiring at 67, planning through age 85, they're going to pay $519,000. They earn $1 too much.
They're going to pay $643.
And if they hit the max amount of income,
$1,000,000.
Now, again, your public employees, I'm going to see if I can go back, have
nothing.
pension and rental, well, pension income counts.
Okay.
So now their pension income, which they're maximizing, and they might be getting what is known as Social Security through double indemnity, not as much, but they're going to receive some, plus all of their investments. What's their income go to?
Their income goes way up.
So now they don't pay that $1.1 million when they're in the
We
highest.
do.
Isn't it great?
This is really mind-boggling. And talk about the middle class really getting pounded.
Oh, it's going to get better. So to show you what's really going on, as we jumped to the slide earlier, I had to jump back because I went too far. When you take a look at the average, how Medicare is inflated through the years, you're going to see that in 5 through 20-year bands, every time Social Security gives a cost of living adjustment, your Medicare premium inflates by at least twice as much. So when you start looking at the real good fun of this, if you take a look at somebody who's 60 years old today, retiring at 67, what you're going to notice in blue is that's their Social Security benefit. We're going to inflate that at 2.4%, which is what the projected cost of living adjustment will be. The red line is their Medicare premiums. Their green line is their received Social Security check.
That's a big discrepancy.
Is it?
Yeah.
Now imagine, and I don't have the slide, but imagine being on Medicare's IRMA and that goes negative.
Then you really have nothing to live on.
Isn't it? Well, you do. You live on your own savings, and then what will happen is you'll pull more money out of that traditional 401k.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. You're going to be pulling that out. You're going to be paying the difference in the premiums, paying the difference for everything else. So you go bankrupt.
Well, they're going to. People argue they're rich. They can afford it. But are they really rich?
Well, that was going to be my question.
So now the next question now we throw in is you're dealing with this world right now, and you're seeing that you're paying $475,000 for your Medicare premiums if you just do the right thing. If you then throw in health conditions and you start taking medications, especially medications that are not covered under the tier 1 through 3, but they're in
4, 5, or 6.
4, 5, and 6, you're now paying for medications out of your pocket that costs tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. So the question that we always like to ask, which financial firm's helping anybody plan for this?
None that I know of.
There isn't one. Actually, there is one that we work out of. They're out of Vermont. It's called National Life. But besides that, there isn't a financial firm in the country that actually addresses any of these federal laws. And they've only been on the books.
80.
Well, so we talk about Medicare being mandatory. That's 1965.
Correct.
So we'll give them some credit. It's only been...
It's not really been that long
60
when
years.
you think about it. Yeah.
Well, really, it's been 60 years.
Yep.
You'd think they would figure out law. Social Security benefits coming out of your Medicare premiums. I mean, Medicare premiums coming out of your Social Security check. That was law in 1984.
Right, so the 80s,
that's not really, I mean, that was like yesterday.
40, 50. But when it's federal law.
It's federal law. I mean, there's no reason to apply federal law since 1984. Medicare IRMA, it's only been a law since 2003. That's kind of new. So you really can't, it takes them at least 50 to 60 years to catch up to federal law. So you can't expect them to actually plan for Medicare's IRMA. They can't do that till about 2040, 2050.
In which case, we won't be around.
Well, but
maybe.
You also won't have any assets.
Correct.
And this is all,
We'll be living in
believe it or
huts.
not, a majestic plan. The reason why it's a majestic plan is we like to show this one particular chart. It comes from the Congressional Budget Office. It came out in 2007. The reason why we use the chart still, and it's 13 years old, is 2007 was the first year for Medicare's IRMA. So what is the CBO telling us? This is a chart that shows how the total U.S. budget, Social Security, and Medicare are going to interact through the next 60 to 70 years. Now, what happens to the total budget? What do you see? What do you notice?
The U.S. budget stays pretty level.
And then you look at Social Security, and what happens?
It's level.
And what happens to Medicare?
It goes up.
So they know
exponentially.
that when your Medicare premiums go up, how much do they have to pay out in Social Security?
More.
Really? When your Medicare premiums go up,
No, they're not going to have to pay out more because they'll keep taking it out of you.
so do they have to
Social
pay out your
Security.
Social Security check? So does Social Security ever really have to worry about going bankrupt?
No.
Now, the reason why the U.S. budget gets to stay level, all these Medicare IRMA surcharges that everyone pays,
Goes back into the budget.
goes back to the general fund of the U.S. Treasury per order of the 2015 Bipartisan Budget Act. So, as long as Medicare continues to increase in premiums and prices, what is everyone actually really doing? They're ensuring that the federal government
Is going to stay level and liquid
Isn't it great?
off of our backs again.
So real quick, what we talk about is what is not income. Obviously, life insurance, 401h plans, Roths. Again, we want to talk about people need to realize that there are 4 rules. You have to enroll in a Medicare. It's mandatory. It's based on income. Income is your traditional 401k. You're going to lose your Social Security check. Now, if there's anybody that needs any information, feel free. Our phone number is 208-231-7080. We will offer it to people in obviously Nashua or wherever. We'll gladly give them a free report, or they can obviously email me and send me the information.
That's nice. And it's Dan McGrath from Jester Technologies.
Jester Financial
Jester
Technology.
Financial Technologies, thank you. And say the number again.
208-231-7080. It's a Boise, Idaho number.
Okay.
That's where our
But
sales
it's real.
crew
There it
is.
is, right up there on the guide.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope we didn't scare the pants off of you. But feel free to reach out to Dan, and hopefully we can give you some more information in future shows.